Hi everyone, my name is Ross Donahue. I am a cartographer on the StoryMaps editorial team. I want to welcome you all and say a happy Geography Awareness Week. A particular shout out to all those who are celebrating and have organized events where they're tuning in to StoryMaps Live. We know one campus in particular at Yale is actually turning in. So thanks so much, and let's get going.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and quickly outline what we're going to be doing today. So we're very lucky that we have actually two featured storytellers on the line, and we'll be introducing them just in a moment, Lillian and Sandy. So we're going to go ahead. I'll hand it off here just in a second to Alan, who will give everybody a quick overview of StoryMaps and a few examples of how StoryMaps are being used. We'll then pass it off to our featured storytellers, who are going to present their story, The Hunt for Delaware Boundary Monuments. And then Ross will take us away on a brief demo of the StoryMaps Builder and also talk about some of the enhancements that just came out about 2 weeks ago. So on that note, Alan, why don't you go ahead and share your screen and take us away.
Great, thanks Grayson. Give it a second here. Okay, I think you all know this, but just to be sure, I'm going to run through what a story map is. Story maps are web apps that combine interactive maps hosted on ArcGIS Online, Esri's cloud resource, with multimedia content. So that's your photos, your videos, sometimes your audio, and text to tell stories about the world. And I mean all sorts of stories, from neighborhoods to states to nations to the entire planet, and everything pretty much therein. They work on a variety of screen sizes, so in other words, they're responsive. We've worked really hard to make sure they perform just as well on cell phones as they do on tablets and PCs. And this is the real secret to me. They incorporate interactive builders. So I'm a designer, not a technologist, and if I can make a story map, which I can, that means pretty much anybody can. And Ross a little later will show you how this magical little block palette works. Story maps are hosted by Esri in the cloud, which simply means you don't have to worry about maintaining a hosting infrastructure. And they've grown incredibly rapidly in popularity. This has been really exciting for us to see our story maps grow from, use of them grow from about 120 in 2012 to over 1 million today. And in fact, in just the last 2 days, thanks in part to GIS Day, we've seen more than 7,000 new story maps. So it's just thrilling to see how they're being adopted. I'm going to show you very quickly a couple of example story maps just to remind you and us what story maps do. So this is a story map produced by National Geographic. We helped out a little bit with it on the mapping of Mount Everest. And of course, the basic experience is a scroll. But within this, you can get all sorts of rich multimedia content, including 2D maps and 3D web scenes. So this is a beautifully detailed model and satellite image of Everest that you can explore virtually. I recommend that rather than trying to climb up to 29,000 feet. It'll also display static maps that has sections that we call sidecar, where the side panel scrolls as the media panel changes and updates, and that media panel can focus on anything from 2D and 3D maps to videos to still images to you name it. So that's one example from National Geographic. By the way, it includes some really amazing data and flyovers created using LiDAR and drones and such. I'm going to quickly move on to a very different topic. This was done by our friends up the street at Blue Raster on the geography of wine. And they worked with a small little government bureau that essentially kind of certifies wine growing regions. And they talk about those regions and the process of going from their amazingly antiquated former system of actually marking up USGS topo sheets to a much more up-to-date system of using GIS. And my Wi-Fi is a little bit slow here, so there we go. So this is showing wine regions in the Virginia area. You can see nice looping videos within the sidecar section. And then I'm going to very quickly move on to one of my favorites, which is on the South Fork of the Salmon River. And the reason I really like it is it's a wonderful example of what we like to call map choreography. So you can use Sidecar and our new slideshow section or block to essentially take people through a story that's based on a multi-layer web map. So you can change the visibility of different map layers, and you can change extents to just kind of zoom into a territory and explore a map and its various themes and tell a story very vividly this way. So this is something that that we urge you to do. So you can take a Sidecar section, you can duplicate a slide within Sidecar, and then change the map within it to create some really neat effects. And then of course you can combine it with this kind of rich multimedia content. So with that really quick introduction, I'm going to hand it over.
Great. Thank you, Alan, for that primer. So I'll take back over here and introduce our two featured storytellers. So we're very lucky today to have Lillian Wang and William Schenk. William, I believe, also played by Sandy, but we can ask him what he prefers. So Lillian is a GIS specialist and cartographer for the Delaware Geological Survey. They're based at the University of Delaware. And her undergraduate double major was in geography and art, and she has a master's degree in geography. And Lillian's really quite special in that she uses story maps to present technical geologic and hydrologic research, but geared towards a non-technical audience, which I think is a huge and very important application of story maps. She also teaches story maps workshops at the University of Delaware Library and introduces students, faculty, and staff to the web app. And then we have William Sandy Schenk. He is a geologist for the Delaware Geological Survey. He grew up in Delaware and received his BS in geology from the University of Delaware in 1980. He was hired at the Delaware Geological Survey in 1981 and completed his MS in 1997. And Sandy has a joint appointment with the University of Delaware Department of Geosciences as an associate professor. And his research has focused on the Delaware crystalline rocks at the Central Appalachian Piedmont. And early in his career, which we're actually going to be talking about today, he also worked for the Delaware Boundary Commission to restore Delaware's 179 boundary monuments. And that is, in fact, the subject of Lillian and Sandy's collaboration, the Hunt for Delaware Boundary Monuments. So on that note, I will let Lillian take over the screen, and she's going to talk a little bit about their work. Take us away, Lillian.
Great, thanks, Grayson. Thanks everybody for joining us. Sandy and I are both very excited to be here. So I guess basically I'm going to share my screen and show you my story. If you haven't already, please take a look if you have a chance. Basically, Sandy started working, like Grayson said, Sandy started working at the survey back in 1981. And one of his first projects was to go around the state and locate all 179 boundary monuments that mark Delaware's boundary. So through my 20 years that I've been here at DGS, I've heard Sandy tell different stories about his work. So myself and a lot of other people were always very interested in this. We have a photo archive that has a lot of photos from the work, and I always thought that all of this work should be documented. And as it turned out, last year, Sandy was asked to give this presentation about the monuments to a group of local surveyors. So I had asked him, you know, may I have your PowerPoint presentation? I thought this would be a great starting point for me. And I thought, what better way to talk about all of this than in a story map? The other push for me, too, was Sandy's retirement is drawing near. So I thought I really need to get this information out of his head and document it before he leaves. So he's actually got his countdown coming up. So when I had started with my PowerPoint, I had several meetings with him and wanted to get my facts straight. And as I started this story, I very quickly realized that I felt I needed to provide a historical background as well, because his audience was surveyors. I wanted to be able to speak to a non-technical audience at a, say, junior high school level. So, and I have to assume most readers may not be familiar with Delaware if they've even ever heard of Delaware. So as I started inserting history, which that in itself is a very complicated story, I started realizing I had two complicated things I was talking about, and it was so easy to get off the track. And after weeks or even months of being frustrated, I finally realized, you know, this isn't working. And the only thing I could come up with was to make a separate story. So I actually have a link here to another story that talks about the history and gives you a kind of a general outline, kind of to prime you to give you a little more information to read here. So hopefully this works. And if somebody were to start with the other story at the end, you know, I say, hey, you know, in 1981, you know, somebody went out and recovered all of these, read it here. So they kind of are linked to each other. So that was one of the main stumbling points I had at first, and that's how I decided to resolve it. And then just quickly, I can show you. So I did talk very briefly. I had to mention, you know, hey, you know, there are 4 major boundaries, and, you know, when I start talking about them, that way the reader can understand, but I have to talk about it very briefly. The other problem that I kind of ran into and that I solved, and forgive me as I scroll and jump down to the section I want to go to, there were so many interesting stories about each of these monuments. And I picked a subset of 8 of them to talk about in particular, just to give people an idea of, you know, what were the kinds of things that Sandy and his colleagues were running into when they went out there. So, you know, I want to have a title about each one. I had a photo and some text to go along with it. The other thing that I did want to include was a map, just to kind of give somebody an idea of ground truth of where they were. But every time, I didn't want to add an entire map. I didn't need even an express map. So I thought, well, let me just, you know, have a little image. You know, I just want to have a little graphic with, you know, the cartoon outline of the state and a locator point. But every time I tried to add an image, so this, if anybody's used this new builder yet, this is the float option. So, you know, you have your image and then you can float your text next to it. Every time I tried to add an image underneath, even though I had space under my text, it would always bring the map underneath it. So I was like, I just wanted to have a little thumbnail right there. So actually what you're looking at with the title and my sketch, this is actually an image that I made. So it's like a little banner image. That was kind of the only way I felt that I could resolve what I wanted. And pretty much I just wanted to, you know, save some real estate and save everybody from scrolling too much. So that's kind of a little trick that I put in there. And like I said, everybody can just go through and take a look and see what you think. So when I originally started this story, I started it in Cascade template because it was a little over a year ago when I began this. Then I went to the UC in the summertime and I found out that this new builder had come out. And actually talking to Grayson, he was the one that encouraged me to take all of this content and move it over into the new builder. So I thought, well, I should probably do it, and this will kind of give me the push to start using it. And like anything new, it's kind of difficult to get used to something new. So I wasn't sure about it at first, but the more I started using it, the more I warmed up to it. And now I really like it a lot. I think this move to, you know, have one builder in one place and all your tools there was a very smart thing. And it's only going to get better with all of the upgrades they have every couple of months. So that's kind of pretty much my quick overview. I guess I can pass it back to Grayson at this point if you have any questions or comments.
Yeah, let's leave you on there for a second, and
Okay.
we can actually open it up to the audience. So be sure to find that chat window if you haven't already, and send us any questions that you have for Lillian. And while we're letting you all stew on what you want to ask her, I've actually got a couple questions for you, Lillian.
Okay.
So, you know, you've talked a little bit about this in the 8 monuments that you picked out to focus on. But something that I was really impressed with this story was how you humanized the story and gave a sense of character to these otherwise, which are literally lifeless rocks. So, you know, just coming with somebody, oh, boundary monuments, that sounds like a pretty dry topic. But the way that you have presented it through the avenue of Sandy almost as your character, as well as these really unique stories about a few of the boundary monuments, was really humanizing in a way. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about, I don't know, how you got to that point, how you made that decision. Maybe it was quite natural, but in any case, could you speak a little more about that?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much like I said, Sandy is the one that's a great storyteller, to be honest. I mean, this is his work and his story. So I really cannot take the credit for the content, to be totally honest with you. You know, I just managed to find a way to channel the information, like I said, from his head and from his words, and then to put it in maps and pictures and text, and to try to get it out as a story map should be. You know, try to get the good information out there, keep your people's attention, get to the point, and you know, as succinctly as possible. So really, it was Sandy's story that is what you're looking at. But it was just, my work was just to be able to refine it to put it in the app. So any, like you said, any story can be made into a story map, you know, and then it's just how you choose, like a writer or somebody that, you know, directs a movie, is how you present it.
Yeah, great. So we've actually got a question from the audience here, from Moss. How was the boundary that he describes as falling in the ocean side handled? And I think he's referring to that first map at the beginning of the story where you show the different boundaries of Delaware.
Oh, okay. I guess right here, I guess you're talking about New Jersey. You're probably talking about this one down here. Let me scroll down. Basically the one that's in the water.
Mm.
I think that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case.
That's nice. I went back outside it. I guess we can show you part of it here. I guess, Sandy, do you want to explain?
Well, so the Delaware-New Jersey boundary is made of two boundaries, really. It's the Delaware Bay line that goes from just west of number 6 there, and follows the shipping channel down through the river and the bay. It gets to the mouth of the bay, and there's no language after that in the boundary agreement. It just gets to the mouth of the bay. So that's what Lillian has shown. At the time, we agreed to reset the monuments within what's called the 12-mile circle, and that's the northern part of the Delaware-New Jersey line. That actually references the 1934 mean low water line. So it's quite difficult to find the original map in the U.S. Supreme Court decree to digitize that line and have the boundary monuments reference that 1934 shoreline, which has now eroded back and left the line actually out in the water.
Sorry, it took me this long to get to this map. So this is pretty much this is what's unique about Delaware, is Delaware actually owns the river and the river bottom up here in this circle.
Within the 12-mile circle to the 1934 mean low water line.
Which runs along Jersey. So that's why the boundary is out offshore.
Yeah, great. And there's actually another question from Karen asking, were you able to transfer information easily from the old format story map to the new one? I have a large story map journal that I want to move to the new format, and I'm hoping to find an easy way to export the wording so that I can reuse it. Could you talk a little bit about how you made that transition, Lillian?
Well, I mean, pretty much it's not like you can just directly export from, like I was in Cascade and just say, you know, make this into the new builder. It was really, I mean, for me, it was easy because the content was already there. So you already have your pictures, you have your text. I mean, it is going to be a matter of copying and pasting your text, you know, and then choosing your tools and deciding, you know, if you want sidecar, you know, do you want to float your image in and text, etc. So, I mean, it wasn't difficult to me because the content's already there. To me, the content is the hardest part of, you know, trying to decide, you know, how you want to tell your story. So as long as everything is there, but it is just going to be maybe a little tedious in that you're going to have to, you know, sometimes if you're trying to change it, you go, oh, I got to find the image again, or I got to download it from the story map and plug it back in, or I got to copy and paste all of this text. But it may seem a little tedious, but really it's going to be worth it. It's really going to be worth it if you want to switch it to the new one. So like I said, I don't think it's difficult because you already have your content ready to go.
Yeah, this is Alan. I happen to have just written a blog post about making that transition, and you're exactly right. It's a manual process, but it goes pretty quickly. So you can find my post on the ArcGIS blog, so blog.arcgis.com, and then you can filter for story maps, and you'll see it there.
Great, thank you. Another question I had for you, Lillian, or sort of something I was thinking about. I've had the fortune to have known you for a couple years now. We always run into each other at the user conference in San Diego, and I've seen you develop quite a lot as a producer of visuals and story maps, and you've achieved in this story a really nice harmony and softness of your visuals. Everything kind of fits together. It all matches this nice dark theme you've used. I was wondering if you could shed a little more light on your process in making those decisions about those little locator maps, about how you've added some of those nice vignetting around some of the images.
I think it was just, like you're writing a paper or a journal. You start with one rough draft, you kind of get your ideas down first, and then just kind of make a rough cut. And then it's just a matter of, I can't even count how many times I went back and looked at the story over and over and over again, that we both did. And each time you look at it, you might have a fresh perspective. And like even that locator map and title, I really didn't come up with that until more recently. I just, I had those there, and I just always had thought, I want a little locator. I just felt like it would ground people a little bit more as they went to each one. And like I said, just in thinking about it, it just kind of developed as I went along. So it's just a matter of, looking at it over and over again. So this wasn't something that came easy. I mean, both these stories, I've been working on for over a year now. So it took a very long time to pull together. So.
And I'll just say that Lillian has an art degree, and some of those pictures were actually 35mm slides, and so she had the idea to take the dark edges off of those slides, some of them by using a feathered edge around some of those photos, which I think made the photographs look much, much better.
I mean, mainly I did that too, so it would blend into the background of the template, so rather than having the white border. I don't know if anybody remembers when I was scrolling back, but there was that piece of paper that looked like it was on a black table. That one actually had a white background, but in Photoshop, I was able to select any white areas and just make it black. Those kind of little touches to kind of make it blend into your story better. Those are those little subtle little things here and there that kind of can make the difference.
Great. Well, I think we're just at about time, and we should probably move along and see some demos here. Lillian and Sandy, thank you so much for sharing this with us. It's great to hear about your process. We had a lot of questions come through in the chat, so we'll do our best to get back to some of those, especially if they're more technical related to the story map builder. And on that note, let's pass it off to Ross.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Grayson. So we've been getting some excellent questions in the chat window. I want to encourage you to keep asking those questions. We have one of our colleagues moderating that right now, and so he'll be compiling those questions and answering them when possible. If we can't get to them today, we'll be sure to post the answers online. So what I'm going to do is give you an overview of how to get started using story maps. But really the focus is on the latest enhancements to ArcGIS StoryMaps. These are new features that were just released in the October release. Great. So to get started with story maps, it's actually really easy if you have an ArcGIS account already. So I'll just walk you through how this process works. So I've got a link here to go to ArcGIS Online. And I'll sign in to my account. Once you log in, you'll see your organizational page. And one of the easiest ways to find this is to go to the app launcher area right here and navigate to story maps. when you click on that icon, you get to the Story Maps page. So this is the My Stories page within Story Maps. This is where you can manage all of the story maps that you've created, as well as create new story maps. So you can see I have a number of story maps that I've been working on or have already published. And I can go back and edit those at any time. To start a new story map, you just click Create New Story, and the Story Builder is launched. This is where you author your story map. And so it's really easy to get started. And so I'm going to start assembling a story so that I can show you some of the latest enhancements. And I've developed some demo content so that this will just go a little bit faster because we have limited time. So you can see you can just really easily add text. You can add content to your cover as a cover image. This story map is about a national park in Kenya called Lake Nakuru National Park. And so you can see this is, I'm already starting to assemble my story. In the upper left, you can see that there's this saved message. One of the newest features is that we have autosave in ArcGIS StoryMaps. This way you don't have to continually say save or stop saving. We've also made it really easy to change the look and feel of your story. You have control over the cover design, as well as customizations for the color, the fonts, and you can add a logo really easily to match your organization style. Later on, I'll show how with one click you can change the look and feel based off these different themes that we've developed. So let's add a little bit more content to our story. How StoryMaps works is we have these content blocks. When you click this plus button, you get access to a variety of types of content that you can add to your story. This can be anything from text to graphic elements to immersive sections and to rich multimedia like images, maps, and videos. So what we'll do is we'll just add a little bit more text to our story. And what I want to show you now is the newest block to be added, which is called Slideshow. Slideshow allows you to add a series of images or media types in succession. I'm not going to be able to have time to go in depth on all of the different blocks in this tutorial, but I would suggest that you navigate to our resources page on our website, as well as watch our last StoryMaps Live event, where you can see some more details on that. So let's check out this slideshow block. So immediately you see this functionality to be able to add an image, a map, or a video to this slideshow. So the story is about Lake Nakuru National Park. So I'm going to add a map showing where this park is in the world. So when you click Add Map, you can create express maps, or it links to any of your content that you've created in ArcGIS Online. So I've created a map of protected areas in Kenya. So I know that Nakuru's located over here. So I'm going to start out with adding a map that shows where Kenya is. Okay, so how this works is you can just add some basic text here. So and what's really exciting is you have control over where this text goes on your map, or on your image, or on your videos. to add another slide, you simply hit this plus button, or you can duplicate a slide really easily. I'm going to go into my map and show all of the protected areas in Kenya by turning on this layer. And I'm going to modify this text to say, these are national parks in Kenya. Okay, and then I'm going to go one step further, and I want to actually show my readers where Lake Nakuru National Park is. Awesome. So I've shown how you can add maps to Slideshow, but what's really cool is how you can add images and rich multimedia. Let's add a couple more images. And so you can start to get the sense for how this can be used within your story to create a rich experience for your readers. So let's take a look at how this is coming together. You simply advance forward, and then you can continue with your narrative. One of the latest enhancements is how you can preview your story. So we have a new viewer window where you can see on different devices how your story will look. So you can test how your media is looking for a mobile device, or for a computer. If you want to go back and edit your story, you simply say edit story. Another new enhancement is within the sidecar block, which some of you may be familiar with. You can now embed content in the media panel. So on the left, you can put new text, but over here, you can now embed content directly in. So I really like adding videos to my story maps. And so in Vimeo, you can take the embed code here and then navigate back and paste all of that text in. And what the Story Maps builder will do is recognize what kind of content that is and then put it directly into your story. You can also add in things like other apps that you've created using Esri's tools, as well as video content and things like that. Now, I mentioned earlier that we have these themes. For those of you who haven't seen this before, what this does is with one click, you can change the overall look and feel of your story. So this will change the background, it will change the fonts, it will even change items that are on your map to change colors and things like that. So I would recommend exploring these rich tools and checking it out. Once you're done with that, you can click Publish and share it with other people within your organization. When you share it with people in your organization, they can give you feedback, but it isn't public to anyone. They have to be part of your organization to see it. So I'm feeling pretty good about how this story is coming together. Of course, with more time, I would continue to refine it. But if I was really happy with it, and say I wanted to present it at a workshop or at a conference, there's a simple feature here where you click these 3 dots and you can say, turn autoplay on. And what will happen is, without needing to be at the controls, your story will scroll automatically. Now you can change the speed, or how fast it goes, or start from the top, or stop it at any time and take back over control. So I also want to make sure that you know about some of these harder to find features that can add some more customizations to your story. So at any point you can change your sharing settings. So say you want to publish it to anyone, you can do it that way. And then what you can also do is in here, you can go to your story settings. And if you don't want to have your published date associated with your cover, you can now click here, click save, and you'll notice that instead of having the date that you created your story map on there, it will be removed. Another really exciting enhancement is with collections. So collections allow you to combine stories and apps that you've created in a simple viewer experience. So the easiest way to find collections is to click on your login image, go to My Collections, and My Collections is still in beta, but it is advancing rapidly. We use it for most of our presentations these days. We've moved away from using PowerPoint, and we're really excited about this. Grayson actually created a collection for this workshop today. So with collections, you can simply get started by clicking Create New Collection, adding a title, you can add a short description, and then you simply start adding items to your collection. So say I want to add this story map that I just created. I want to add one about crowdsourcing, one about volcanoes. You can also add different apps that you've created. So I created a web app showing croplands over a decade time period. You can also add, classic story maps like this one, Sounds of the Wild West. When you say Add to Collection, you can then see your content and move it around to change the position. You can sort a variety of ways, either by the date added, by drag and drop, or go back and add some more stories. Once you're happy with how your collection's coming, it's time to publish it so that you can take a look. When you publish it, you now have the ability to present your collection. By clicking this Present button, you then can see all of your content that's within your collection as a list here, or by advancing using this top toggle.
Kind of a relevant question, Ross. Someone was just asking. So say I wanted to now share this collection with somebody. How would I how would I get them connected to this?
That's a great question. And so if you have made your collection public to anyone, you can simply share your URL when you share it to everyone, there will also be a Twitter button and a Facebook button. So you can easily share it out with your readers or your colleagues or your co-presenters.
I see. So I can grab that URL, and it looks like you've got a little parameter in there at the end, either to have it in presentation mode or just as that list of cards in a folder.
That's right. So if you ever want to go back and edit your collection or change the share settings, you just go back to edit. Here you can see, the share settings. You can unpublish it. You can even delete it. Another cool feature of collections is you can actually change the thumbnail.
I expect that would make it look really nice, sharing it on Twitter and social media.
That's right. That's exactly right. So you can customize your cover image to match what your collection theme is. Great. So with that, I want to share a couple of really important resources for everybody. Those are the core features that have been updated. So let me just go back to our presentation here.
I think we have a sharing.
So here we go. So I want to just touch on what's coming next. I'm sure there's lots of questions about, is this feature going to be incorporated soon? When is this coming? So let's just recap what came out in this October release. So I showed the slideshow block. Definitely go in and start creating with this. You have the ability to control your publish date and your cover design. There's collections refinements. So being able to use that for a variety of uses, whether it's a presentation or really tailor that to your audience needs. An updated preview, the ability to embed directly into your sidecar block, and then autoplay your stories. Now, what you're probably all wondering is what's coming next. So we have a lot of really exciting advancements coming in 2020. The next release will be kind of late January, early February. And some of the features that are coming before too long is more text formatting options, the ability to print directly from a story map, more options in Express Maps to add data layers and things like that, a map tour block, and story actions. We love hearing from you guys about what the features you'd like to see within story maps are. So feel free to add that to the chat window or get in touch with us directly.
And actually, this is something I notice a lot of people often don't find. Would you mind showing folks where they can go to provide feedback in story maps really easily?
The best place to go to give us feedback is actually within the builder itself. So if you're in collections or if you're in the story map builder, you can always find this question up at the top, this question mark, and click feedback. With this, a survey comes up and you can tailor that feedback to whatever type of feedback it is, really. So if it's questions, technical issues, ideas for improvement, or direct product feedback. This is the best way to give us a sense for what issues you're having, what enhancements you want to see, and to really directly communicate with the developers who are building these tools for you all. I also want to direct you guys to a couple great helpful resources. Definitely visit our website. Within our resource page, you can scroll through and see all sorts of helpful tools and blog posts for getting started, as well as example stories from the storytelling community. Many of you are on the call probably.
Yeah, and just a comment, to get to our marketing page, you can either go to esri.com/storymaps is a short link, or in that same little question mark help icon in the top of my stories, where Ross was just showing you, you can provide feedback. You can also link directly to the resources page, which is that same website.
Okay,
so yeah.
So we've got some time for question Q&A period. If you have questions, feel free to add them to the chat window.
And loads of questions.
I'm
Many
looking
more
at
than
that.
we can answer right here, but we'll get to
I'm
it.
looking at that right now. We're at 99. Who's going to be the 100th question?
And in fact,
Make it a good one.
I've been furiously jotting down as many that I could and that we could answer on the spot. So I'll run through those really quickly, and any additional ones, please send them through. And David, feel free to weigh in if I've missed anything. So I've seen a couple questions about bookmarks within story maps. So this is basically navigation within a story, being able to link to a particular section in a story map. The short answer to that is that we're working on it, and it'll be coming soon. There was a question about how to use a story map. So once you've published it, how to, say, incorporate it into a different website. Well, story maps support embedding. So you're going to need to, you may need to create an iframe, which is a type of HTML tag. But a lot of websites, say Medium and WordPress, I believe, they support being able to copy and paste in a straight URL address. But basically, the answer there is it'll depend on the particular website that you want to embed it in. We had a couple questions about control over background colors and text colors. So two answers there. One, we're going to continue to create additional themes. So we have 4 themes currently with different combinations of background colors. In addition to that, we've heard it loud and clear, the need to have more control over customization, being able to color particular pieces of text, being able to choose your own organizational fonts. And so we're working on a developer story, which we will have an answer for that by the Developer Summit this spring. Spring 2020, that is. There's a question about copying a story map. So being able to open a story map and essentially save as. That's also another, another piece of feedback that we've heard loud and clear. Also something that we're working on and hopefully will be coming soon. Questions about map legend. So you have a map in your story map. How do you show the legend? It is there. The default is not to show it, mainly to minimize the clutter on the map. But when you're editing a web map or an express map, there is an option in the left-hand panel to access the properties. And in that properties panel, there is a toggle to enable or disable the legend. And when you enable the legend, you'll get a little pop-up in the lower corner of the map, which when you hover over will expand and show you the legend for that map. Embeds in Sidecar, happily we have that, as Ross demonstrated. There was a question about incorporating a slider map. So having essentially a swipe showing 2 maps or 2 different pieces of data on a map. So one, we are working on a native slider option within story maps. That also will be coming soon. But in the meantime, you can certainly use our classic story map spyglass or swipe, and then include it as an embedded app or any other ArcGIS Online web app that supports that slider experience. Customizing HTML, again, that will be coming with our developer story in 2020. And there was a question about moving a story map between ArcGIS Online accounts. And I think someone did provide an answer in the chat to that. It's a little more complicated. So you can't at this point move a story map like a lot of other items between organizations. But if you have administrative access or you can talk to your administrator for your organization, you can certainly change the ownership over a story map between accounts within the same org.
Oh, here's another another one I can answer very quickly. Are there plans for providing the capability to publish to an ArcGIS online group? And that's another one that's actively in the works and will be available in a future release.
Right, and a little inside secret there. So even though you don't see the option to publish to a group within the publish button in StoryMaps, you can still add the story map item to a group manually by going into your ArcGIS online content. We haven't fully built out all the functionality of sharing story maps in groups, so that's why we haven't made it a very visible option, but it can be done. Really quick, last one, can you edit the byline in a story map? Absolutely. You simply click on that text where you saw Ross Donahue, for example, in his demo, and you can directly type in whatever you like.
And there's so much more that you can do, and there's lots of resources on the website. So I'd suggest going there if you have additional questions, as well as keep writing them in the chat window, and we'll be compiling all this feedback to communicate to the rest of the team.
Yeah, so a couple final announcements as we wrap up. Thank you, Ross, for showing that. So we have an ongoing StoryMaps challenge. It will be going on until December 15th. This is a pretty big one for us. We actually have a financial incentive. There's a $5,000 grand prize and a number of smaller $1,000 prizes. We've seen a good bunch of really great story maps, and we hope that if you're working on story maps of your own, that you'll consider submitting to the competition. You can find more information about it if you scroll back up to the cover page. We have a short link there for us. Yeah, to bit.ly/storymapper. So be sure to check that out and see if you're interested in. And as we wrap up, we just can't stress enough that we can't wait to see what you create. We're learning so much from how users such as yourself are doing your work. Here's our contact information for both our featured storytellers as well as everybody on the Esri side that was involved with this webinar. I also wanted to point you to a couple really great resources from the Delaware Geological Survey, so from Lillian and Sandy's organization. So they've used story maps quite prolifically in their organization, one of which is they're working on transforming what used to be a PDF series, this digital information series, into story map format. So you can check out some of those at that bit.ly link. They also have a, not a story map based application, but another ArcGIS Online application, acronym CRIS, for a Cultural and Historic Resource Information System. But you can go and learn more about some of those boundary monuments if you happen to be a history buff or nerd, such as myself. And really encourage you to keep checking out all of the great resources we're putting out. We've really doubled down on writing blogs, tutorials, providing other support information. So here's a few key pieces of information you might find interesting. There's a blog about all the new enhancements that came out in October, as well as blogs specifically about some of this functionality, such as slideshow, choreographing transitions and maps, and other lesson materials to help you on your learning path. So on that note, thank you all so very much, and we look forward to seeing you maybe in a couple months when we hold this webinar again.
Happy story mapping.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.